Oh my god, my mum's doing the hoovering. Why? She never hoovered. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to the first Mental Health Mondays in a very long time. I know I promised one of those how to deal with different emotions videos this week, but I really want to do it properly and really think about it, so that will probably be going up in the next few weeks, so stay tuned. But instead today I thought I'd do a video that a lot of people ask me about. I get loads of questions about it, so I thought if I clear it up in a video, we'll be all good. And that is, what is it like being in a mental hospital or a psychiatric hospital or whatever you want to call it. I was in hospital for a long time, so just background if this is the first time you've seen me. Hello, my name is Marie, I'm now 20, but when I was 17 I was in hospital for nearly 6 months, and then I turned 18 just as I got discharged, and I was also in an adult psychiatric unit, so I can't actually give any kind of advice about, or not advice, but like information about adolescent psychiatric hospitals because I was never in one, even though I was a child, technically. So this is like NHS hospitals. So I turned 18 in the March. In the September I went back into hospital and I was discharged at Christmas. Yeah. And then after Christmas 2017, this is bringing us up to now, I was in hospital from January to April. So all in all it was like a whole year of my life in hospital, you know, dispersed, but technically in months it was a long time. So I asked on my Instagram, if you don't follow my Instagram then you should if you want to be included in videos and ask me questions, because I always ask them on there. I asked on the little question thing, which is so sick because you don't have to put on posts and only I can see who wrote them, so I feel like more people write them. I asked for any questions about psychiatric units and I got quite a few, so let's just divulge, because I know in my last video or the video before, something like that, I did speak about how much I hated being in hospital, so I just want to clear like a few things up because like partially helped me, partially didn't, and just all the general information that people really want to know. So I got lots of questions about the kind of routine of hospital, and like what the food was like, what the rules were like, were there any bedtimes, stuff like that. So like I said before, I'm talking from my perspective, which was being in an NHS, which is, if you're not from the UK, it means that in the UK we all get free healthcare. So I didn't have to pay to go into hospital. I wasn't in a private hospital, I was in kind of the public hospital, if that makes sense, where you don't have to pay, and it was also an adult hospital, so yeah. And I was in 2 different hospitals for a period of time, and I've also been on like 4 or 5 different wards on them, so I'm just gonna like bundle it all together because they were very similar, to be honest. So the routine was nothing really. There wasn't really a routine. Like we had meal times and then visiting times, and that was probably about it. So meal times was like, I think it was like breakfast at 8 or 7:30, and then lunch at 12, dinner at 5, and then like supper, if you want to call it, like we had toast at 9. That was basically the routine. So I based my whole day on what I was going to do around food, basically. Someone asked if we were allowed visitors and did I get many visitors. We were allowed visitors from like 4 till 8, I think it was, on weekdays, and then weekends I think it was a bit different, I can't really remember, but it was more like the whole day. Did I get many visitors? Yes, the sad thing is I got not many different visitors, but like my parents came to see me every single fucking day. Like they were so good, they came to see me every day. And then I had a few friends come and see me a few times, and someone else asked a question about that, so I'll talk about that later. but in reality a lot of people there did not get visitors. They wouldn't see anyone, and it just makes it's really sad actually, because yeah, when visitors come in they have to sign like a book and say who they're coming to see, and it would always be like my name, maybe someone else's name, but like people did not get regular visitors, and I was really fortunate that I did. In terms of the routine, in an adult hospital there is literally no routine, because you're not forced into education, you don't have a bedtime. Like I know they they like locked up the TV lounge area at maybe 12, and sometimes you could push it, but in reality that was it really. You got up and you did whatever the fuck you wanted. Well, as much as you could do being locked in a ward, but that for me, doing whatever the fuck I wanted was sleeping or being forced to watch Jeremy Kyle all day. All I really did when I was in hospital was literally colour. I coloured so many of like them adult colouring books. That's what I used to just spend my day doing, and I would listen to audiobooks, and that's really all I did. There was no therapy for me. There was a clinical psychologist there, but I saw her maybe twice, and that was only in my first admission. I didn't see anyone else after. To be honest, all you do is you wait all week for ward round. Ward round is like a meeting with the consultant, so the consultant's like the top doctor, and at ward round that's where you get granted leave, or like your medication is changed, or like you're allowed to be discharged, you know, like that's where all the decisions are made. So I would used to just wait all week for the next ward round so that I could get some leave or like be discharged, you know. So that was kind of the routine. It was really not fun, like it was so boring. What are the age ranges? Lots of love, by the way. Love you too, Holly. The age range. Now, when I was 17, I was so shocked. I went in there and I don't know why, but I expected people to be like my age. I expected them to be young, but I'd say the average age of someone in there is probably 50. Everyone was like 20, 30 years older than me. I think when I was 17, the youngest person in there, like above me, was 29. So yeah, I was very young to be in there, and most people are probably around like 40, 50. The age range is a lot older than I was, and that really threw me off, because imagine being like put into a house and having to like live with people who were like 30, 40 years older than you. And especially when I was 17, that really scared me, because I was scared that I would become someone who was a revolving door patient and was in them when they were 17 and is still in when they're 50. Do you know what I mean? It really, it hit me hard when I went in there. I was like, oh my god, and it really made me upset. What is the biggest misconception about psychiatric hospitals? That is a really good question. Who was that from? M. Hardwell. I will see your name, thank you. I was like, oh, I know you. The biggest misconception is probably, I don't know. That's a really difficult question. I would say something like the reality of it is so different to what people expect. Like, I think people expect people to be screaming, and like some days the wards would be really hectic, and like one person would have screamed all night and like been like manic or like really poorly, and then it meant that everyone else was awake because they were like really awake, so it would throw the whole ward off, and then the next day would be a nightmare. Everyone would be really irritable, and like people would like think like incidences would happen. But on other days it's just the most mundane place, and to be honest, I just don't really get hospitals. From my point of view, I just don't see how like putting so many mentally ill people in one place works, because some people are in there because they have schizophrenia, some people are in there because they self-harm, some people are in there because they have postnatal depression or like a drug addiction or alcohol addiction. Like, it's so, like the diversity is so vast that I just don't see how it works, because it just doesn't, in my head it just doesn't really work. So yeah, I would say that's the really weird thing, is that I think the biggest misconception as well is that people in there are really normal. Like, they're people that you would see walking down the street. They're people that maybe have taught you in school. They're people that have served you dinner or, like, you know, treated you. There's nurses in there, there's moms, there's, you know, dads and brothers. It's everyone. Like, it's, I think people think that it's like a certain type of person, but it's really, really, really not. Like, you go in there, you see so many different types of people. What was your relationship like with the nurses / healthcares? Was it easy to talk to them? And then someone else said, like did you get along with them? Were they mean or were they strict? I was very, very lucky. It was weird because I was 17. Is my camera wonky? I can't tell. Because I was 17 when I first went in, like, to be honest, I'm basing this mostly off my first admission because it's the one that I actually remember, which is odd. But because I was 17, I was like the baby. They really, really, really took care of me, and I was extremely lucky in that respect, to be honest, because I know there were people in there which would go days without talking to anyone, even though you're living with like 20 other people and like 4 nurses and whatever. So I was really lucky. Everyone was really nice to me. Obviously there was a few, always is, you know, it's just like any other job. That majority of people are lovely. Sometimes they were absolute bitches. Some of them you just don't get along with, but that's just normal. That's just, it's not really them, it's just more like there's a stressful job and like they have a lot of responsibility. But I would say majority of people, especially like the healthcare assistants, because we didn't really see the nurses. That's the thing in psychiatric hospitals. Like, a lot of the nurses, they spend all day doing paperwork, so they're in like the office bit, and it's the healthcare assistants which are the ones there to talk or like help you out if you need something. So yeah, they were all lovely to me, really, like, genuinely lovely, and I actually miss a lot of them because they were really, really nice to me. So yeah. Do you think being in hospital helped you? That was another question that so many people asked. It's a really hard question because I would never, ever, ever, ever dream of like going back, not even dream, like fucking cry about going back. It would be like the worst thing I would want to happen ever would be to go back into a hospital. And I just think it's a very difficult environment. Like, it's just difficult. It's you're away from home, you're surrounded by so many different people. Like, it's just, you're like forced to take medication, or like everything's so regimented. Like, you have no freedom. Like, you're not allowed out, you're locked in, so it's really difficult. However, it did save my life. I genuinely believe that, especially my first admission, it saved my life. And it got to a point where, because my mum and dad, it was like my mum and dad they weren't skilled or like qualified to help me. Like, something else needed to happen. I think hospital is and should always be the last resort. But I think that staying for so long became detrimental to me, and it became very difficult to come out of hospital and adjust back to daily life. That's what's odd about it, and people don't really talk about it, is that after being in hospital for 5 months, I don't know how to come back out to the world and do things, because in hospital I didn't do anything and I was allowed to be ill and I had absolutely zero responsibilities. Coming out and then being told, like, you need to get a job, you need to get up today, you need to wash every day, you need to eat and cook your meals, and everything is just so barbaric. Like, I remember coming home from hospital and feeling like an absolute stranger in my house. You know what it felt like, right? You know when you go to like your friend's house, oh my god, my mom's being so fucking loud with that Hoover. You know when you go to like your friend's house, and obviously like their house is really familiar, like you know your way around, but you don't feel at home there. It's not your home. So like, if you sat on the sofa, you're not gonna like slouch around if their mum sat there, because you just, like, you have this kind of guard up. That's what it was like coming home to my own house. Like, I was like, can I go for a shower? Like, I'd asked so many questions because I wasn't sure what I was allowed to do. It was really, really odd. So in that kind of sense, I think that hospital is definitely needed. There's a reason it's there, and the staff were amazing to me and they did save my life. But for me personally, like, again, this is my personal thing, it should be a crisis thing. It should be a week-long admission, not a 5-month-long admission, because 5 months is just so difficult, especially when you're 17. Like, going in and out of hospital for nearly a year, that's a lot of your life. And yeah, it was difficult. It was really difficult. And you know, they, like I said, they are there for a reason, and I would never bash the NHS because it's not their fault. Like, fundings are cut. I think you just get so used to it there. You get so institutionalised so quickly. That's the thing as well. I was always told, like, don't get institutionalised, don't get used to this is not normal. But it becomes normal, it becomes your reality. You walk into the hospital, it's weird, because like, if I went back to that hospital to visit one of my friends one time last year, and I walked in and I was like, this is the fucking grimmest place ever, this is horrible. Like, it just felt so like clinical and not homely. But then when I was actually a patient there, it felt normal, it felt like a home. And that's when it's become dangerous, because it is so easy to be there. It's you don't have anything to do. Like, you can just be ill, and that's what it is. It's an odd thing. Did you ever make friends that you genuinely liked? And I love all of your videos. Thank you so much, Kate_Campbell106. Thank you. Yeah, I made genuine friends there. Of course I did. Pip, my mate Pip. We met in St Michael's. She is my best friend ever now. It's been 2 years since we met, and she is my best friend. So yeah, I see her every single week, and we met in a psychiatric hospital, so of course you can. I met so many people in there who were so genuine. It's very odd, because we were very different. Like, these people I would never cross paths with otherwise, because of age and like where we lived and that. But in there, like, they are genuine friends. They look out for you, they support you, they chat to you every day, they keep you company, and I'm really grateful for the people that I met. They were amazing, like, they were second to none. I love them. Yeah, you definitely can. Were you allowed your phone, and how did you listen to music? Loads. Thank you. Yeah, so I remember the first night I was in there, it stressed me out so much, because the one thing I was so scared about was that I didn't know the routine. I didn't know what I was allowed to do and what I wasn't allowed to do. So I was like hiding my phone. But yeah, we were allowed phones, obviously, in the PICU. So I also was in a PICU, which is a psychiatric intensive care unit. So it's like a more intense version of a psychiatric hospital kind of thing. And I was in there for a month or so. And in the PICU, you weren't allowed your phones at night, or you weren't allowed them. So if you were abusing your phone, so like a lot of people would either look up bad things, or they would text people, or they would call the police and say like, I'm locked up. Can I get locked up? Don't let me out. True, like, this happened all the time. Like, the police would be like, oh my god, yeah, I know you're locked up, it's because you're very poorly. So if that was the case, then you wouldn't be allowed your phone. And to listen to music, you kind of had to be allowed earphones. So I was allowed earphones most of the time, so I could listen to music. But even when I didn't, I would just listen to the music out loud, or I literally, so I was on what's called a level 3. So in hospitals as well, you have levels. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. Level 1 is like you get checked hourly. So they check your location every hour and like what you're doing. Level 2 is you get checked every half an hour, no, every 15 minutes. Level 3 is you're with someone constantly, so someone's literally just watching you. And level 4 is like someone's watching you but you're on arm's reach. So yeah, you can kind of figure out why that is. I was on level 3 for a really long time when I first got admitted when I was 17, because obviously I was really young. It's not the safest place. Like, psychiatric hospitals aren't safe technically. So I was on it for a while, and then I've been on it a few times since. And it was, I used to listen to, I've always loved audiobooks since I was like 4 I listen to an audiobook every night, and it's just like my comfort. So they would be like on one-on-one with me all night, and I'd be listening to Harry Potter. Like making them listen to Stephen Fry reading Harry Potter every single night. What was entering like? Is there paperwork, etc.? Also, do you have to get stripped? No, you don't have to get stripped. You can't, unless you're like sectioned. You can only get strip searched if you're sectioned. So if you're informal in that, they're not allowed to strip search you. But when you do get admitted, it's kind of like a hour and a half, like they have to get a doctor to come, and like a few times I was admitted at like 11 or 4 in the morning, and it was like a really long process. So you just literally sit in a room, and then they would ask you questions and like just all the boring stuff. Not boring, it'd be really intense actually, but they do that, and they take your blood, and like your physical observations, I think. Are there any mean people who you didn't get along with? And did you see other people have incidences, and how did that affect you? So there was people I didn't get on with, but to be honest, I stayed out of everyone's way. I was really well behaved in hospital. I was like not argumentative, I didn't get into fights or anything, but there were people that did, because people are ill, people don't get along in general, and you know, like everything's escalated because you're in such a close environment. But like I was saying, it was weird because I'd be like, I can't tell if I don't get on with you because you're really poorly and you're just saying shit to me, or just because you're not very nice. So that was always odd. But I tell you what, the people who were mean, I would always see get better, and they were not mean anymore. So it definitely was an illness thing where they would say comments or like lash out or like be quite scary. There were a few times where I would genuinely be scared, because I would be like, oh my god, what the hell is going on? This is so surreal. Like other patients would have either like schizophrenia or like psychosis, and they would be quite scary to me because I'd never seen that before. And what was the other question? Did you see other people have incidences? I mean, yeah, you did, and that was really horrible, especially if they were your friends. It was not nice, because it, like I said, it just unsettled the whole ward, so everyone would be unsettled because of what had happened, which is normal, but just because everyone, like, it was like a ripple effect, really. It just affects you like it would normally, like you get really upset, or like it's just difficult because like if they're your friend and they're really hurting and you want them to stop, but like you also understand. That's the thing in hospital, is that there's like literally no barriers. Like you go in there and you make friends with people so easily because you're at your lowest and you don't care, that you just like get people. So like if something happens, you kind of understand. There's like a level of empathy that you would never get elsewhere. I think the only thing was difficult was that there would be a few people who would like try and how do I explain it? Try and like not trigger you, but like compete with you. I had that a few times, even with like people who I was friends with. Not Pip, by the way, not Pip. Just like this was like my first admission, so it's like a year before I met Pip, and I always found that very odd. It's very strange. Like I feel like a lot of people would be triggered. I never got triggered by it. I just found it very odd. Like there was still a part of me that could see like some clarity in the situation. I was like, this is so weird. Like I'm not even gonna take part in this discussion. And I think because I was so young, and because everyone else was a lot older than me, I always kind of took a back seat, and I didn't really participate as much because I was used to being in school, you know. I was used to like put my hand up, can I go to the toilet? So I was used to this kind of like regimented, keep to yourself, like don't step out of line mind frame. So yeah, there were people that were like definitely like wanted to compete. Did you get your own room? A lot of people ask that. Yeah, I was very, very lucky to, in all my admissions, to have my own room. There was one hospital though where I met Pip, and you had to share a toilet with 16 other women. That was probably like the most disgusting thing ever. Like, what were the meals like? I always love that when people are like, oh, what do you do? And then everyone always like, what's the food like? The food is literally like it would be in a normal hospital, so it's like there's like a 2-week timetable thing, and it like rolls over. So for breakfast it would just be like cereal, or you could have toast. For lunch it would be like, I used to this is how bad it was, right? So whenever I was in hospital, I would always, there was this like egg salad thing, which was basically some leaves, a tomato, and like a boiled egg. But I don't like yolk. Like, you know, in eggs, I only liked the white bit. So like by the time I was leaving, I would order an egg salad every day at lunch, and they would end up taking the yolk out for me because they were like, oh, here's your egg salad, no yolk. I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, people were really nice that way. Or you could have like a jack potato or like soup, something like that. And then for dinner it would be just like, you know, like it's like school dinners, if you know what I mean. So you have protein, or like, not protein, but like, I don't know, lasagna, and then they might put it with like rice. It was really like mixed matched. It was just like food like lasagna or like curry or like moussaka, and anything you can get like a ready meal, it was like that. And then they would have pudding as well, like, which was basically cake and custard every day. And then they'd have toast in the evening, and I hated the food. It made me gain so much weight because it's the type of food that just sits in your stomach, so you feel full, technically sometimes, but then like you have zero energy. Like, it does not give you any nutrients, I found anyway. I hated the food, and I was really snobby when I first got there. Like, I didn't want to share like cutlery with anyone. Like, everyone just seemed so, like, I just was so scared of everyone. Like, I didn't want to share the cutlery, I didn't want to like get tea and that from the trolley, because we'd have like tea and coffee breaks, it'd be like a tea and coffee trolley like 3 or 4 times a day, and they'd have biscuits. So my first admission, I didn't eat a lot, but then after that, because I was on certain medications which made you so hungry, like I was literally like a bottomless pit, and I would just eat so much, and I gained 3 stone in like two months, and it took me like a year to get the weight off. So yeah, the food was absolutely awful in my case. Like, I actually hated the food so much. Can you compare the PICU to the other ward you were on? So yeah, so being on a PICU was actually the worst experience of my whole entire life. It was like, I'm not even joking, it smelled like death. It was like hell in there. I hated it. So in my other wards there was like a running TV. In this ward there was no TV. There was like 4 other patients, but they were so severely ill, like they were so ill. And by like the last week of being in there, when I'd kind of like, my medication was working a bit more, like I just wanted to get out. Like, I hated it. I cried every single day, like all day, because I just wanted to get out. So in the PICU there was like 5 beds, so like 5 rooms, and there would be like 8 staff. Like, there was so many more nurses, even though it was a quarter of the size of a normal ward. There was no running TV when I was there. It's a lot smaller. Couldn't go anywhere, like literally it was in a line. So my room was there, the dining room was there. This is all I could do all day. Like, I was too scared to come out of my room because I didn't like the patients and they scared me. Like, it was just the most awful experience of my whole life. But the people in there were like severely poorly, like so much. So I don't think I was on their level, like maybe at the start, but to be in there for like a month, it was awful. And like, if I'm gonna have a nightmare about hospital, it would be about being dragged back to there. I said, like, did my extended family know that I was there? So my extended family knew I was there. At first I would not allow my mum and dad to tell anybody. Like, I didn't tell anyone. So I did not let them tell anyone, but after, you know, like 5 months of them, I see my family like every week, like my close extended family that lived near where I was. So they're like, why is she not here? So they did find out, and they were amazing. Like, no one ever treated me differently. Everyone was really nice to me. Like, I'm really lucky with my family. They never ever treated me different. And then what helped me the most was probably like the acceptance, if that makes sense. So like, once I was in hospital, I kind of, before I didn't even realise, like, I'm not even joking, like maybe a few months before I ever went into hospital, I didn't even think I had like any mental health issues. I just did not know what was wrong with me. So being in there, it kind of gave me this kind of acceptance that like this is what's going on, and I really, like, I'm the only one that can change it. I think seeing so many different ill people, and I saw myself being able to become like a 30-year-old still in there, and that really terrified the living daylights out of me. So it kind of forced me to make a change and forced me to try and recover, because before I was just in this like complete stalemate where I just didn't give a shit. But being in there, like, I had something to work for. I wanted to be home, like I wanted to be with my family and my dog, and like be able to see my friends, and like be able to charge my phone at any time, because we were only allowed to charge our phones at night. Things like that. Like, I wanted to be able to have different food and just watch whatever I wanted on TV, not what Karen, who wants to watch Jeremy Kyle 16 hours a day. It was just things like that. Like, it gave me something to work for, and in the long run, like, it did make me better because they put me on like medication. Like, it was just, for the time being, it was like what needed to happen, but it was also like a really horrible experience. But because it was so horrible, it made me want to get out. That makes sense. So that is gonna finish off the Q&A. I hope it cleared up some things. I hope it was a bit interesting for you all to just find out about it, kind of thing. So if you did enjoy, give it a like. Mental Health Mondays are back on the board. And subscribe if you want to see some more videos from me. I don't just do mental health, I do just random videos too, so yeah, so let me know if you want a second part. If you have more questions, comment them down below, because I can always answer in the comments down below. So much easier than like on Instagram and that, so let me know. Also, a lot of people have been saying that they didn't see my video go up, so if you want to hit the bell, I feel like such a fucking YouTuber saying that. If you want to though, like, you're more than welcome. And yeah, so that is everything. I will love you and leave you, and I hope you enjoy. Have a great day, rest of your day, whatever you do, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!